Next one we're talking about, Dalton, is my favorite school growing up. The number 8 Penn State Nittany Lions at the West Virginia Mountaineers. This game is at noon Eastern time on Fox. And really, the storyline for this game, for me at least, these are two teams looking to prove something, right? Because James Franklin entering his 12th season as a head coach. And speaking of 12, college football playoff expanding to 12 teams this year. He's expected to at least bring the Nittany Lions to that field, right? And if not, then his seat might start getting a little bit warmer. I'm not personally one of the Penn State fans who thinks that James Franklin should be on the hot seat, but there are plenty that do think that, man. And if he loses this game in West Virginia week 1, that's only going to get even hotter, right? And then the other side of the ball, you got West Virginia, who's coming off its best season in 7 years, but they weren't ranked in the preseason AP poll, even though they brought back a boatload of talent that you'll get into in just a second from that team. They were number 25 in our initial preseason ranking, man. But I really think these are two teams really looking to prove something. Penn State looking to prove, hey, we are a playoff contender this year. And West Virginia looking to prove, hey, we should be in the top 25 right now.
Yeah, and honestly, I think for West Virginia as well, proving after winning 9 games last year that they're in Big 12 contention. Not just playoff contention or getting ranked. Big 12 contention, I mean, they were darn near, especially offensively, as good as any team in the Big 12 last year, right, outside of Texas. They've looked, I think, very much like Georgia Tech. You've got a 3-headed rushing monster in Garrett Green and Jaheim White and C.J. Donaldson, right? You've got a defense that added some transfer guys that they're getting better, especially in the secondary. Got to fix the front 7 a little bit, but even a guy like T.J. Jackson from Troy should really help them up front. I think West Virginia, and we were seeing win totals on them not that long ago at, 6.5?
Yeah.
For a team that went 9-4 last year and dominated North Carolina in their bowl game. And just, I mean, it's another team that really started to ascend in the second half of last season. And I think when you're talking about these two teams, they both have very high expectations. And honestly, when you look at a playoff race down the line, I know it's week 1, it's very early in the season, but this could be one of the most consequential out-of-conference games when it comes to the playoff race, right? I know we have Texas, Michigan coming next week. We have some other ones coming down the pipe, but this is huge. I mean, this is a huge game when you talk about, especially for Penn State. If Penn State were to go down in this game, now we look at them, one, a lot different in the Big Ten race of like, okay, where are they at right now? And because they have this issue of like, okay, it's Ohio State, it's Michigan, now it's Oregon as well.
Yep.
And there's people think kind of there's this big thick line, right, between those teams. And then there's Penn State, and then there's everybody else. Like you said, you got two teams trying to prove something, and we'll see if they can do it in Morgantown.
Absolutely. So this West Virginia offense, Dawn, has been keeping me up at night. I've been laying awake at 3 o'clock in the morning thinking, okay, how is Penn State going to defend Garrett Green, Jaheim White, C.J. Donaldson, all the playmakers? West Virginia's Wyatt Milam, too. PFF Darling, a left tackle, excellent left tackle for West Virginia. So what is the matchup for West Virginia when they have the ball in this game?
So what West Virginia can lean back on from last year's matchup, okay, is they were able to run the ball. They ran the ball well. And Jaheim White actually was the first game of the year as a true freshman, didn't actually play. It was really just Green and Donaldson running the ball. And the only team that ran for more yards on Penn State last year was Michigan. So when you're talking about being able to compete with Penn State, they have an elite front 7 every single year, right? They want to run the ball. They want to get to their play-action game, okay? So the one thing I'm looking for is where can West Virginia create more explosive plays? Because when you talk about Garrett Green, he throws down the field, right? He's led the country in big-time throw rate. They want to get over the top, and then they want to create explosive runs with their speed. They only had 3 plays in the game last year of 20-plus yards between these two teams, right? And that's just not how West Virginia operates. They don't usually slowly manufacture offense. They create explosive plays off play action. They have a lot of speed. Garrett Green's feet create a ton of plays for them. But it's hard to do against this Penn State front 7, guys like Abdul Carter who are really, really athletic. The other thing I'm looking at is West Virginia, that was a very clear theme in this game, especially in all of last year, struggling to beat man coverage, okay? And what you're talking about here is just they need receivers to step up. They need, I don't know if it's Hudson Clement, if it's Preston Fox, if it's transfer Jaden Bray. They need guys who can step up because they really struggled all the way around against man coverage, and even Garrett Green's passing numbers were way better against zone than man. You saw when Penn State went into press man and even a blitz look last year in this game, West Virginia just had nothing in their passing game. Nothing. It just shut down. Zone, a little bit better. That's what Garrett Green can see, anticipates. He throws into windows well. But they need people who can separate against press coverage. Or if I'm Penn State, I would send blitzes all night. I would send blitz and press cover 1 and all of that stuff all night. Just keep challenging these receivers. Either one of two things will happen then. either somebody on the outside is going to win for West Virginia, or they have to rely solely on the running game in the same fashion almost that Georgia Tech did against Florida State the other day. And even then, Haynes King had to make about 4 or 5 clutch throws, right?
Yeah.
I think it's a problem more so than the front. I think West Virginia, they've got a ton of experience on their offensive line. You mentioned Wyatt Milam. I think they can pass protect in this game. But can the receivers separate? Right from and who knows? We don't know what Tom Allen yet is going to bring that Manny Diaz maybe brought differently last year. But I can guarantee you they're going to look at last year's tape and go, we can cover these guys one-on-one. Let's put the heat on Green. Let's make him throw through man coverage and see who can get open.
It reminds me, Manny Diaz is gone now, right? Manny Diaz is now a Duke head coach, but that's the defense he ran, right? He blitzed basically more than anyone else in college football. So Tom Allen, the new Penn State defensive coordinator coming in, formerly the Indiana head coach, I'm excited to see if he can do that as well. So I think that's a really interesting matchup is that Penn State, I'm with you, man. Just get after Garrett Green. I will say, though, Garrett Green last year had the lowest pressure to sack conversion rate in college football. He did an excellent job. Whenever he was pressured, he did not get sacked, man. He got rid of that football or he got out of there and made a play with his legs, which he often did.
He's normally going to run when he's pressured. If you send those looks, and it's fine. Look, mobile quarterbacks running against man coverage, I'm all for it. We see Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and those guys, even Patrick Mahomes do it all the time. They get a man coverage look and they just want to take off and run, cool, because everybody's back's turned. Green in the past has shown that he's going to run. I do question if he is going to throw through the blitz a little bit more and if anybody can get open in those scenarios.
Absolutely. So my matchup I'm looking for is really just a generic Penn State one. It's will this arrival of we mentioned before, Tom Allen, new D coordinator for Penn State. They also have a new offensive coordinator, and Andy Kotelnicki coming in from Kansas. Will he be enough to fix the supporting cast for Drew Aller? Because you and I have been preaching this from the rooftops, man. Drew Aller was not the problem with Penn State's offense last year, no matter what people want to lead you to believe, man. A lot of the blame was put on his shoulders. He had an 86.3 PFF grade last year, top 20 mark in the nation. Rarely put the ball in harm's way. Now, I will say, one of the reasons why his turnover-worthy play rate was so low is also because they never threw the ball downfield. He had the second lowest deep pass attempt rate in college football, which is horrible considering this guy, even in that West Virginia game last year, he made a throw, like a sidearm throw, like 40 yards downfield, right in the money. And it's like, dude, this guy is an NFL arm, and you're not throwing the ball downfield. It's as if I was playing quarterback, man. I can only throw the ball 20 yards downfield, right? So that's a big reason why they fired Mike Yurcich in November of last season, before it was even over. And you look at the grading, man. Penn State last year was 81st in receiving grade and 58th in pass blocking grade, even with 3 NFL offensive linemen on that offensive line, man. You look at what Andy Kotelnicki did, though, and why I'm a little bit optimistic about this offense this year. They really schemed open a lot. Kansas didn't overwhelm teams with talent, but they still had the 5th best offense in terms of EPA per play in the country, and only LSU, Oregon, and Georgia had higher EPA per play marks than Kansas. LSU, Oregon, and Georgia all had absolute freaking superstars. Carson Beck, Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels. Those are the quarterbacks of those teams. I'm not saying Jalen Daniels is not a great quarterback. He barely even played last year, right? Our guy, Jason Bean, was playing for most of those snaps, but they were really efficient, man. And also, Kansas, 3rd best receiving grade in the country, only behind Washington and Oregon. Dalton, can you name a single Kansas receiver from last year, like off the top of your head, man?
Is it last year they had the tight end Fairchild?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, we're not talking about Troy Franklin or Roma Dunes.
I think what you're getting at too is the Penn State should have a similar basis Kansas did when it comes to running the ball, right? Yeah. And obviously Jalen Daniels and Jason Beeden played a big part in that, but Devin Neal's an elite back. You know, a lot of, obviously Nick Singleton and Katron Allen are 2 of the better backs in the country. So, and I think what you get that I really liked with Kotelnicki and Kansas's offenses, they use Jalen Daniels had a cannon too. Jason Bean had a cannon too. They use every square inch of depth and width on the field, right? Yep. They're not just boxed in. You're not going to see Penn State now go back to an I formation and just box themselves in. Yep. In the way that some teams
which do. They did so often, man.
Right.
Last year.
You're not going to see that. Kotelnicki loves using the entire field, all 53 yards, and as far as his quarterback can throw it, especially down the middle of the field. That's something I noticed. No matter who his quarterback was. So if you've got a rifle like Drew Aller does, does, I think Kotelnicki is going to find ways to create shots for him down the field.
Absolutely, and that's important, man, because if you just look at what they have on the depth chart right now, you would still be pessimistic, right? They lose Olufashinu, they lose 2 other NFL offensive linemen. You lose your top 2 wide receivers in Keandre Lambert-Smith, who went to Auburn, and Dante Cephas, who went to Kansas State, to the transfer portal as well. So you look at that, and they bring in Julian Fleming, who I'm a little excited by, but we'll see. It's year 5 now for Julian Fleming, I believe. So we'll see what he can do as a former top 5 overall recruit. But the supporting cast, just purely on paper, looks the same, if not worse, than last year. But the reason why I'm a little optimistic is because of Kotelnicki and because of how innovative he was as offensive coordinator, and because Kansas really punched above their weight class offensively. I'm hoping he could do the same thing with Drew Aller and Penn State, and we'll see. I mean, West Virginia's got a pretty good secondary, man. Guys like Aubrey Burks we're a big fan of. Garnett Hollis Jr. we're a big fan of as well. So they have players in that secondary that could give Penn State issues, especially with those receivers. But I'm looking forward most to seeing how Kotelnicki does in this game against West Virginia.
No, absolutely. And it's a team that he didn't get to see last year, so it's even new if you think, Kansas maybe played Westphal last year. They didn't, so it's not familiar territory for them. But you're right, Westphal's secondary can absolutely keep them in this game, and we'll see how they play in the trenches against Penn State's run game.
Absolutely. So, Dalton, are you going to break my heart right now and pick West Virginia to win this game, or do you think my Nittany Lions start off the season 1-0?
I will tell you this was the hardest game of the 5 for me to pick. There's a lot of variables. West Virginia, look, last year when Garrett Green played in this game, it was his 3rd career start. Jaheim White did not play in this game. It was his 1st career college game as a true freshman. There's a lot of variables. Andy Kotelnicki is a huge variable in this game and what he's done with Drew Aller and this offense. It just came down to me. I think Garrett Green, I have to see him manufacture more often and hit some of the easy throws. His high-end throws are as good as any player in the country. Yeah. Like, he can just do things that a lot of other quarterbacks can't do. But it's the down-to-down consistency, right? Sometimes just taking and hitting that 6-yard throw that keeps you on schedule, because Penn State just doesn't give up explosive plays. And I don't think West Virginia is going to find a whole lot more. I think if there's one thing Penn State is going to do is make them manufacture offense. I think it's going to be a really tight game. Do I think it's possible? Here's what I do think. If West Virginia were to win this game, Garrett Green is going to find himself on NFL radars immediately for beating a defense like that. I do have Penn State winning 27-23. I think West Virginia's offense has to be almost perfect because it's still an excellent front 7, right? Abdul Carter, Dennis Sutton. They've got great linebackers. You've got Kevin Winston on the back end, right? I still feel like Penn State's defense has enough in them just to slide by in this game. I think it's going to be a lot tighter than it was last year. And it was tight last year through the first 2.5, 3 quarters, and then Penn State pulled away. Their defense, West Virginia just didn't find enough answers, and they weren't the team in week 1 last year that they were in the end of the season, which is why I think this game will be a lot closer. But Penn State's defense just has them escaping with a win in Morgantown.
I'm with you. I have 30-24 Penn State winning this game. I think what's going to happen is West Virginia's going to come off offensively. Penn State's going to be like, what's going on right now? Right? They're going to be a little thrown off by that. They give them a scare early, go into halftime, maybe even up at halftime. Then I think the Penn State defense settles in. I think Kotelnicki draws some better things up in the second half, and Penn State pulls away for the victory. But I think it'll take some time. I think Kotelnicki and Aller take some time to get in rhythm, and then once the second half gets going, then we start to see the offense open up a little bit. So I got Penn State winning a very close one, but I'm with you, man. I think this is a razor thin game, and I know it's a top 10 team in the country against an unranked team. I would not be surprised at all.
We already saw it once.
We've
already seen it once. It's not new. It's already not new. It's a new season, but it's already not a new concept.
And because you nailed that one, I'm so grateful that you did not pick West Virginia to win this game, because I would have been very nervous.
It's the one of these 5 I'm the most worried about, if that helps your calmness there. I don't.
No, actually, that's the opposite. It makes me feel way worse about it, honestly.
Yeah, it's entirely possible for Westphal to win that game for sure.